Do you ever find yourself overwhelmed with anxiety? Hey everyone, I'm Ronald Long. I'm a husband, a dad, and a former pastor who's trying to figure out what it looks like to follow Jesus in everyday life. And today I want to share some thoughts on anxiety. I remember the first time I admitted to a doctor that I was feeling anxious. I was there for a yearly checkup and we were just going through the normal questions, and he asked, "Well, do you feel like you're struggling with anxiety?" And I had to kind of keep myself from laughing because I always struggled with anxiety. I have memorized so many verses in the Bible where it talks about worry and anxiety, and when this doctor just asked me about it, of course my answer was yes. There will be moments in my life where my chest feels so tight, and I try to think about, okay, what am I stressed over? What deadline is coming? What task needs to be done? What big life event is coming up that just has me feeling so anxious? And sometimes there's not one, but the feeling remains. And so I struggle, and I think, and I worry more about my own anxiety, and then it compounds upon itself. And then I wonder, if I'm so anxious, am I following Jesus in the right way? Because I look to verses like Philippians chapter 4, which is underlined in my Bible here. Don't worry about anything, it says in verse 6. And I remember reading that for the first time, and then for several other times it just says, don't worry, or in some versions, don't be anxious. And I think normally my sinful heart stops there, and it just says, okay, well, I ought not be anxious then, so I won't be. I will refuse to be anxious. And over the course of a day, that just adds to my own anxiety. But that isn't the whole verse. Paul continues, don't worry about anything, but in everything, through prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses every thought, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. I know that often we get told, I feel anxious, I feel worried. Sometimes we get told, well, just pray more. And I do. Praying does often help. But pray more isn't the only thing that Paul is encouraging us to do here. And when my anxiety overwhelms and when I feel stressed and anxious, there isn't a magical formula that makes me all of a sudden feel better, but instead, I feel these steps often do help. The verse right before this, verse 4, says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your graciousness be known to everyone. The Lord is near." I do find that when I rejoice, and when I'm thankful, and when I am grateful for all God has done in my life, I feel less anxious. I feel less stressed. And then I remember this phrase, the Lord is near. There are things that I do that reminds me of the nearness of the Lord. Often for me, it's singing. putting on some praise and worship music in my house and just singing it as loud as I can. It probably bothers the neighbors at some point. But when I sing, I'm reminded of God's nearness. And when I'm reminded of God's nearness, my stress begins to fade. But that statement, the Lord is near, don't worry about anything, but in everything through prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Being grateful, being thankful, and also making my request of God. And then I'm so grateful that it's not just me who is at work in this moment. Like, Ronald, if you pray more, your anxiety will go away. No. Verse 7 says, and the peace of God, which surpasses every thought, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. I'm so grateful that God is guarding my heart and my mind, because so often I feel assailed, I feel attacked, and I need God to guard me. I'm also grateful that God doesn't condemn me for feeling anxious, but instead He meets me in my anxiety so that I can bring my request to Him, and I can bring my anxious heart to Him, and I can bring my stressed out self to Him and lay it at His feet and be reminded that He is near to me even when I'm anxious, and even when after I'm done praying I don't necessarily feel any less anxious, but I am reminded that God is near. I pray that you would feel the same when you're anxious, when you feel stressed, that you would know that the God of the universe who made you and loves you is near to you and loving you. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Remember, you're loved, you're not alone, and God is still at work in your story. I'll see you next time.